Hello and welcome to this video where we'll be restoring a video CD PlayStation 1 system. Now what makes this system unique is that it can play video CDs straight out of the box, and rather than being the standard PlayStation grey, it's a sort of off-white colour. But as you can see here, this example is looking pretty yellowed and grubby. The underside is okay, which tends to be the case with most yellowed consoles. Now you may have noticed a small broken sticker around one of the case screw holes, and this leads me to believe that someone has been in here before. Usually the reason anyone is opening these systems up is to install a mod chip. Normally this would be a good thing, as we'd be able to play backup games. But for the video CD PlayStation, a mod chip will actually interfere with the VCD playback, so I wanted to test the system and see what happened when we popped in a video CD. It turned out I was right, and we'll take a look at what happens when you try loading a VCD in this console when it has a mod chip installed. As you can see, it attempts to load the PlayStation screen but fails, instead showing junk. To me, it's more important that this system is able to play VCDs properly, as that's what makes it special, and to do that we've got to take out the mod chip. Taking a PS1 apart is very straightforward, and we can get a good look at the insides of the system too. I did do a video on one of these VCD consoles a while ago where I showed the insides and the unique motherboard, but I'll do a quick look at it here as well. I ended up letting the other 5903 I had go to a friend of mine who runs the Polish PlayStation website, strefa.psx. I'm really glad it went to him, as it's a great website with detailed articles and photos. So if you've got an interest in PlayStation and its history, definitely check out strefa.psx. I'll leave information in the description below. And here's the culprit of our faulty VCD playback, a little mod chip tucked away underneath the board. It's basically tricking the PlayStation into thinking it's booting a retail disc, even when a video CD is inserted, so we'll get that removed. Thankfully, removing one of these mod chips is pretty straightforward. You can see here how it's attached to the board, and it'll take longer for the soldering iron to warm up than it will to actually get it off. So we've removed all the solder points and we can just peel this chip off. It's basically held onto the board by some double-sided tape. With the mod chip removed, VCD playback should now be restored, so let's give it another go. And, as expected, we can now play video CDs again. The footage might look a little choppy here, but for some reason that's how the video finalised on the disc. I'm just glad it's all working properly and it has its original features back. The next thing we need to address is the yellowed look of this system. Physically it's not too bad, besides a few minor marks and scuffs, which we can sort out. Inside it's just full of dust and dirt, built up over the years, nothing that a bit of warm water and soap can't fix. So, before I go ahead and de-yellow the case, I've given it a good clean in some warm soapy water, with some help from my trusty assistant. With it all nice and clean, we can move on to sorting out that yellow. I guess this is where I should talk about de-yellowing or retrobrighting, especially as recently there's been a lot of talk about using just the sun for de-yellowing plastics. I decided to give that a try and got nowhere with it, which was pretty unusual considering I'm in Australia and we have an abundance of sun and a strong UV index. I went back to using a hydrogen peroxide mixture, and I'll explain the method I use. Like a lot of other methods, I use hydrogen peroxide based cream, 40 volume, 12%. Rather than smearing the raw cream over the plastic, I prefer to pour a bit of the peroxide into a spray bottle and dilute it down with water. Depending on how strong I need it, I'll pour in more or less peroxide cream to water. From there, I simply spray the solution over the plastic as if spraying paint, trying to get a few even coats on the surface and let it sit in the sun, coming back every 30 minutes or so. Now I can't guarantee this will work for everyone, and I'm not trying to say this method is better or worse than any other ways that people are doing it. It's just what works for me, and is generally pretty fast. It also means I can get a massive amount of use from only just one bottle of peroxide cream. Unfortunately, I had to cut the session a little short after only a few hours due to a pretty severe change in the weather, but thankfully there's always tomorrow. And as tomorrow came, it brought rain and fog for the whole day. In fact, this lasted for another day or so there's not much I can do until the sun comes back out. Finally, a day where the sun came out. Contrary to popular belief, we do get rain and cold here in Australia, and as much as I'd like to enjoy the sunshine, I'd like to get back to work on the PlayStation. As mentioned before, I spray the diluted hydrogen peroxide solution over the yellowed plastic and leave it to soak up the sun, usually coming out to check on it every 30 minutes or so, depending on the heat. I'd say it's probably had around 3 to 4 hours of sun, including from the other day, and I'm already noticing the plastic is losing some of the harsher yellow look. Okay, so this is how the system now looks at the end of the day, and I have to say I'm very pleased with how it went. Providing the weather holds up tomorrow, I'll give it a final pass and then put it back together. One thing I did want to address though, was you may have noticed a scratch near the power and reset buttons. Now, as the console has lightened, it's become way less noticeable, but it still bothers me, so I'm going to mix up a bit of water and good old toothpaste to work it out. I did this for a few other small scratches on the console, but as you can see here, once it's all washed off, it certainly improves it. I'll set it out for an hour or so tomorrow morning for a quick de-yellow, but I'd like to get this system back together and running again. Okay, so we're back, and the PlayStation did catch a few extra hours of sunlight, but unfortunately the weather turned again, and it's going to stay like this for the next 2 or so weeks, and I'd really like to get this back together for the time being. I'll likely do a little finalising session in the future, but for now, here's a quick look back at what the system used to look like. Now, I know it's not 100% perfect, but I'm really happy with how it's turned out. Not only does it look a lot better, but it now functions as originally intended, with the VCD playback restored. Of course, the most important feature of the PlayStation is playing games. The 5903 model is region locked to Japanese games, and I think it's time to finally get a game running on this machine. It's great to see that this system also runs games perfectly, and I think I'm going to sit back and play some Crash Bandicoot for a while. I hope you've enjoyed seeing this unique PlayStation get a boost back to originality. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.